Hello, economics students. Today I'm going to walk you through some of the information that you need to complete. I'll try to do this as quickly as possible, and I'm not going to try and give you too much information because I want you to have to go find it. You're actually going to have 3 days of information. This will get you through some of it. I will add, as it shows here in the notes, some stuff tomorrow in red, and then some stuff for Wednesday in red, and some stuff for Thursday in green. So I do expect you to be working on this the whole time. We will review this information on Friday, and I hope you enjoy the lesson. I'll try to provide a video each time as well. I should have enough time, um, but my time is precious. It's like a, a toddler in a tiara. It's precious and short, right? Just like the quote on Pitch Perfect 2. So let's talk about what you need to do. Down here, you'll see Chapter 4 notes, and right now this video link has not been put on, but I will put it on as soon as I'm done. What I need you to do is open your Chapter 4 notes from this sub-lesson plan, and it'll look something like this. You may work on this with somebody else while we're waiting for this to load, and I can use it to show you some stuff. So if you want to next go to File and Make a Copy, I'm not going to make a copy here, but if you click Make a Copy, you can have a copy for yourself, and then you can use your share option to share with your buddies so you guys can work on it together. Please don't do more than 3 to a set of slides. I'd like to have you have enough opportunity to contribute. I feel like if there's more than 3, then some people just get to sit, and I don't want that to happen. So 3 people max. All right, now that we've got that established, let's talk about what you're doing. We are going to skip chapter 3 because chapter 3 talks a lot about some business organizations and setups and things like that, but we cover a lot of that in entrepreneurship, so I don't feel like we need to recover it here. If you want to know that information, you should take entrepreneurship. If you've already taken it, then you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to skip on to chapter 4, and we're going to start talking about some real economic issues, and this one in particular being demand. Okay, so this is your set of slides. Section 1, as we move on down, is what is demand, and I want you to define that right there. Anytime there's a question, I want you to answer it. Okay, and so just put that answer right underneath real quick. Actually, it looks like you need to copy and paste that to here. It looks like it says define demand. I guess that was just the heading. So along with defining demand, I want you to tell me what is microeconomics. These answers can be found in your textbook. That is a resource. These answers can also be found in the internet. So wherever you can find it, you might want to fact check yourself though. Um, too much of his dismay, Donald Trump doesn't always do that successfully, and it costs him in the long run. I don't want it to cost you when you're trying to explain yourself what these things are. So if you find a good site that can give you this information, that's great. If you don't feel like you trust it, you may want to go to the text because it's usually pretty accurate. When you go to the next slide, it has the heading microeconomics. What does microeconomics help explain in relation to demand? You may want to look at your text for that. I'm telling you right now that question comes because I saw that in the text. Okay, so go to chapter 4 and try to find that information. What page is chapter 4 on? Well, that's something you're going to have to find out. That's part of this whole search process and you completing the information. And each question, each slide has a few questions I want you to answer. As I scroll on down, some of them also ask you to, like in this case, paste a basic demand schedule and demand curve. Well, you're going to have to go see what those look like, and then you can just go to Google Images and paste those in here. And there's images out there that will have both of them together, so you don't have to post them separately. Okay. The next thing, as we keep going down, individual demand versus market demand. What's the difference? I want you to tell me what is the difference between the two. All right, and put that in here. If you want to use an example or a picture to show that, you can do that as well. But I need a brief explanation as well. The next thing is marginal utility. I want you to provide me an example of marginal utility and diminishing marginal utility, which we talked about last chapter, using a purchase of a good you are familiar with. So we're bringing this whole idea up again, and it's going to be important because we're going to start measuring this in a table in the near future. So provide me some examples of marginal utility, diminishing marginal utility. Again, some of you didn't do it in your last set of notes, so it'd be good if you did it here because it's actually going to come into play in the long run, especially when we get to the assessment. Okay, we're going to keep going. That will end section 1. Section 2 is going to talk about factors that affect demand, like they change it, they have an impact on it in some way. So the first thing I want you to do with that is I want you to go to page 96. I want you to read the Spotlight on Economy and answer the 2 questions in that story. All right, just answer those 2 questions right here. After you do that, come to the next slide. We're going to get really in-depth about factors affecting demand. And I want you in this slide to graphically display a change in the quantity demanded in a demand curve. And then below the graph, explain what's occurring. So you may want to look at your text again to see what that actually looks like. And then if you can go find it, you can explain it yourself. Again, this is to your benefit. You're going to need to use it later. Another thing that changes demand or affects demand is called the income effect. What kind of impact does this have on demand and the demand curve? You can just answer that right in here. These pictures, they don't really need to be there. You can get rid of them. You can just tell me about the impact. Okay? You can use them to help you to describe it, but you don't absolutely have to have them. I just put them in there for potential. You decide how you want to describe that. So in addition to the income effect, there's also something called the substitution effect. And how does this affect demand and the demand curve? I want you to explain that in this little scenario. So those are things that affect demand. Let's talk about a change in demand. How does a change in demand impact the demand curve? How is this different than a change in the quantity demanded? Okay, so when you look at that curve, how does a change in demand, like people wanting something, impact the demand curve itself? What does that do to it? And then in addition to that, how is this different than a change in quantity demanded? All right, so there's overall demand, and then we get more specific about the quantity demanded, and you moving on the quantity scale versus moving the whole curve itself. Where's the difference there? I kind of gave you the answer. We'll see if you can find it yourselves within what I just said. You may want to rewind, your choice, or you can find it in your text. As we keep going, just so I can keep you on task here, the next one's kind of long, but you're briefly going to describe the factors that cause a shift of the demand curve. Not movement on the curve itself, but it actually shifts and either moves out further and creates more demand possibilities, or it shrinks in because demand isn't occurring. So how do these things impact a shift in the demand curve? These 6 items right here, what do they mean? So that's that. And then you have on the next slide, applying economics. Answer question number 7 on page 101 in this space. That simple. That's all you got to do. Go to page 101, answer the question. Let's keep going. Section 3, we're going to talk about elasticity. All right, hopefully you did some stretching because we're going to go very elastic here. Ha ha, terrible joke, I know. As we keep going, what is elasticity? I gave this to you. I wanted you to know, and I feel like it's kind of hard to describe, so I put some stuff out there to kind of remind you. We've talked about it briefly, but now we're going to get into it a little bit more specifically, okay? So there's a little example for you. You can read through that. And the next thing I want you to do is give me a response for this. The extent to which a change in price causes a change in the quantity demanded. There's an example on page 104, figure 4.5. Can you show me an example, like an actual picture? Like, can you find something similar to figure 4.5 on page 104? I think I might have said that wrong earlier. Can you find me an example and paste it in here so you can see what it actually looks like instead of just having words on the page or words on the slides? As we keep going, when a given change in price causes a relatively larger shift in demand, that's elastic, and this is what it looks like, and I'm providing that for you. Hooray, you don't have to do anything there. Same way, an inelastic, the given change in price causes a relatively smaller change in the quantity demanded. All right, here's quantity demanded on the side, here's price on over here. So you can tell that the demand from 3 to 5, there wasn't a huge change in the quantity demanded, even though the price drops or increases. Either way, I mean, you're talking about two levels or 2 counts of demand. That's not a big shift compared to the previous one, where it goes from 3 to 9 and the price change was 50 cents. Okay, price had a big effect there. That's a very elastic thing. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to create at this point a Powtoon that demonstrates those three types of elasticity. I'm sorry, elastic, inelastic, and then I didn't break it down here. It's right there, unit elasticity. That means it's equal price, equal demand for every movement on the curve here, or the line, if you will. Um, for each one of these, I want you to find a product or products that you can use to make a Powtoon and describe how those products are elastic, inelastic, or unit elastic. The unit elastic you're going to find is a difficult thing to describe, but that's part of the deal. I want it to be a challenge. So good luck. The next slide is the total expenditures test. There's an example on page 105. The big thing here, you're going to create your own version of the table on page 105 and explain the relationship between expenditures and the three types of elasticity. I'm going to leave that totally up to you. This is going to be a challenge as well. This is the part where the notes get kind of difficult, and you're going to have to let your brain stretch out a little bit. It might have to become a little elastic, if you will. Um, so good luck with this. I will work with you on Friday when I come back, but I expect you to try this and see what you can come up with, okay? Um, the next thing, how does elasticity affect revenue? Answer the questions. When would it be a good time to raise your prices? When your product is inelastic in nature. There you go. That's when it's a good time to raise your prices. So can you give me an example of you as a business operating and having a good time to raise your prices? What product would that be? Next thing, an elastic opinion. When do colleges change their price? Is it the end of spring? And if it is, which most of the times it is their price elastic or inelastic? And do you agree with this statement? All right, that's up to you. I want you to tell me if you agree with that statement. And then when you get to the very last thing, there's a demanding activity. And it's a document, it's a separate document. You click on it, you open it up. And shortly thereafter, you have to follow these steps and try to complete these exercises. Okay? And that's it. That's chapter 3. I will let you go from there. Or I'm sorry, chapter 4. We skipped chapter 3. That's chapter 4. I'll let you go from there. Good luck. If you have questions, you can feel free to type them in the community under chapter 4 activities. And if I see them, I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. All right, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful 3 days, and I will see you on Friday.